But those guys are talented across the board. There are so mmany good teams. This what makes you a great coach. I remember Coach Smith Max telling me one time, rest his soul. He said, someone asked, he said, "Well, I can draw a play and have the point guard dribble it to the two gives it to the three, the four man comes over and posts up and gives it inside." He says, and that's when recruiting takes over. So after a while, he needs talent. So the best coaches are always the most talented, has the most talented players, especially in our league.
No question. Kenny, I want to get back to the finals. Game 2 Friday, 9 Eastern on ABC. Obviously, we're pushing for this to be a series. Do you expect a different result? And who needs to really step up on the Heat?
I would say the Heat bench. They need to come in with a great deal more energy. They have been an energizing force for them. They have to get to the open shooters quicker. Not saying that you overextend and you run by guys and you let them drop to the rim, because the goal is to keep the Los Angeles Lakers on the perimeter. And you're saying, can you hit 4 games in a row or 4 out of 7? Can you shoot the ball at a high clip? And we don't believe it. And yeah, it's going to be nights that you do it and we might lose. But that daring to shoot, as you just saw him do LeBron, that can't be the diet. The daring to shoot of the Lakers, you have to be able to contest without running by. That is a better job there. But I think even Rondo here, you're daring guys to shoot. They're going to knock shots in. You have to contend without running past guys. And if you do that, you can make things difficult for the Lakers.
I want to transition. I want to move back off of the NBA Finals again, because there's something that's on my mind that I wanted to express. Not only do you do a great job with TNT because you're brilliant with basketball, but I also think that you would do a great job as an executive in the NBA. Unfortunately, that has not happened for you yet. I bring that up because even though he wasn't talking about executives, Commissioner Adam Silver had to broach the subject of the paucity of African Americans coaching in the National Basketball Association. Alvin Gentry is gone. Nate McMillan is gone. Now Doc Rivers got let go by the Clippers, although he'll likely have a job by the end of this weekend. The thing that I find ironic about all of this is that when social justice issues were going on and blacks were complaining about a plethora of things, rather, but it wasn't just issues with law enforcement. It was things that were going on from a systemic perspective. Now we find ourselves in a situation where blacks are losing jobs but ain't necessarily getting jobs, particularly in the coaching ranks. I want to know, as a guy covering the NBA the way that you do, how much have you paid attention to it? How alarmed are you by what you've seen, particularly in terms of what's been happening to these African-American coaches?
Well, inclusion and diversity is the very fabric of what makes America what we are. So if you don't have it, and if you don't have diversity and inclusion, and then I think it makes it very difficult. I think it's almost impossible for the league to have, I think upwards of 75% or more of the players in the league are African American, and then it not represented anywhere else. It's basically saying that you're basically only can be talent. And that's impossible. There are so many guys who, if you play 10 to 15 years in the NBA, that experience that you have and you gain and the knowledge that you gain, if you're any other business, Max and Steve and any other company, if you left IBM after 15 years of service, you'd be the most sought after in the high executive level. You'd be most sought after person on the open market in other businesses, in other parts of the same business. Basketball and sports seems to be the only thing they say, well, no, you need to go to the mailroom. After you've done 15 years of being an NBA champion, an NBA all-star, a veteran of the game, and all the knowledge that you have. Can you tell me LeBron James, after 20 years, could not coach a basketball team? He's coaching one right now, in a sense. So it's the only sport that they look at. And then you say, do they do that because it is an African-American heavily based, or they do it because that's just a thought process? Either way, it's wrong. And for me, that's how I look at it. I just think that your service, 20 years, if Stephen A. and Max said, hey, I'm going to leave the ESPN and I'm going to do something else in media, you are the most sought after people because of your knowledge and information that you have. So why wouldn't it translate in anything else? And sport is for some reason a place that they don't do that.
Well, I mean, this country has a long history of African-American labor, but white ownership and management. And I think that's why it's an important issue, Stephen A., that you point out. I want to get back to the court for a second. Kenny, I notice, and it's playing out in these finals again, the history of the NBA has been 2 MVP caliber players on the same team win the championship almost every year. Occasionally, like you guys, have 1 MVP caliber player, but then really good players like you, a young Sam Cassell, a young Robert Horry. And when you repeated, you had Clyde Drexler. Although, to be fair, Jordan won in the league, right? Like, that's when you guys got it because, once again, 2 MVP players weren't on the same team. So I look at this Miami Heat team, no MVP players, and now they're going up against a team with 2. And the one issue with the NBA is that once a team has 2 players like that, there's very little you can do to stop them. You know, like it feels to me like a finals like this is bad for the league after the playoffs were so good for it because there was a little randomness injected into it because of the bubble and because of different circumstances. It was legitimately like 6 or 8 teams you felt like could make the finals, right? Maybe 4 or 5 might win the whole thing. And now it's like, oh, here we go. Is there anything to be done about that? Is there anything to be done about the kind of predictability? Oh, here comes Steph and KD with Clay and Draymond. Even LeBron ain't going to do nothing against that. Is there anything that you've ever thought of that can be done to address that?
Yeah, well, firstly, Michael Jordan was wearing number 45 the year we did win it. They lost to a team 4-2 that we swept. Yeah. So he was in the league that year.
17
everyone
games,
forgets. When he was averaging 30 points and getting 55 in the Garden, nobody was saying that he was rusty. But anyway, I diverse. But I think, the Detroit Pistons, we look at Chauncey Billups and you look at, Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace and Rip Hamilton, all great players, no MVP caliber player. But they all were super great players. That's what you have possibly with Miami. So you can win that way. They've gotten to the NBA Finals. They've beaten these teams with, Kemba Walker and all of these and Jason Tatum and Brown, all of these 3 and 2, 2 and 3 guys collectively together. So yeah, it is possible. I think what you have to do is that everyone has deficiencies, and when you have those super teams and you have super players, rather, I don't call them super teams, super players, then you do have some deficiencies because you aren't able to pay the holes all the time. You're not able to always. Danny Green is great for them. KCP is great, but they are older. They're not the same Danny Green that was with the Spurs and with even Toronto. So they aren't the same guys that were when they first signed KCP for $17 million. They are older in their years, so they're banking J.R. Smiths that are on the bench. They signed Dion Waiters. They're banking on experience with those guys, which sometimes doesn't get it done. Experience might not get it done for you.